People like award shows, right? Hello and welcome to Intoxicated Masculinity. It's Wednesday, we got a cocktail video, or in today's case, more of a tasting video. Since it is the holidays, we are doing our best to bring you the laziest content possible. Since it's the holiday season, we are attempting to bring you the most important content possible. And year-end, what could possibly be more important than a top 5 spirits of the year award. So we're going to talk about a couple categories, and I've got 5 different categories, and I've got one kind of dishonorable mention. I don't like to be too negative. There's one spirit that very much disappointed me this year. Now these spirits did not necessarily come out this year. These are just the times when I sort of discovered them and got into them. So many of these spirits have been out for many years. In fact, one of them for a great many years. This is just the year that I discovered them. So since we can't just have a drink in our hand, we're going to talk about my first category, which is American single malts. In this case, it is, we just talked about these two or 3 weeks ago, and it is Del Bach and Kilkeegan. They're both smoked single malt whiskeys. So let's pour ourselves a little. The reason I picked these to be on this list is I feel like it's something that hadn't really been done here in the U.S. To a significant level. Peated scotches have become very popular over the past several years, and I think it's really interesting to have a United States distillery, or distilleries in this case, sort of put their own spin on it. They're doing a similar thing, so there is that smokiness. We'll do a taste. We've already done a tasting, but we'll do one more real quick. You just get that sort of grilly, smokehouse smokiness. Yeah, it's just very, very pleasant. It's a very dry smoke, and so it is definitely related to the peated scotches, and at the same time doing its own thing. These are not listed as far as how old they are. However, I do believe them to be a little bit younger, but as I said when we talked about them in the 2 distilleries episode, I don't think it hurts them at all. I think the youth and the smoke and the dry smoke kind of go really well together. So yeah, these are two really good American single malts that are mesquite smoked. I think they're really good, and I would highly recommend you check them out. Alright, and next up we have a tequila. This year I got into tequilas a little bit. I still have a lot to learn about tequilas and a lot to sort of absorb. I do prefer blancos. I feel like for some reason aged tequilas just don't have the flavor profile that I'm looking for. It might be that I think that a Blanco tequila is already kind of sweet, and that aging it is adding more sweetness, and I don't know if I like that flavor profile. So again, this one, not new, but it's new to me, and that's El Tesoro. Of all the Blanco tequilas that I've tasted, and I've done a lot of blind tastings, El Tesoro consistently wins out as #1. It's a little more expensive than some of your Blanco tequilas, but it's not out of this world expensive. I think I got this bottle for around $50, so it's going to be on level with your Patrons, Patron Silvers, and I would go for this significantly over Patron. It's just got a real rich flavor profile. It's a little sweet. You don't get any of that sort of acetate kind of flavors that you do with cheap tequilas. This is a Blanco tequila you can feel free to sip. If you want to put it in a margarita or something like that, you're more than welcome to do that. But yeah, this is my tequila pick of this year. The next category is mixers. Getting more into cocktails and sort of branching out a little bit. There's several mixers that I've sort of gotten into. Specifically 2 of these I've used in cocktails for the channel. One of them I haven't. We're going to start off with one that is very definitely not new in any way, shape, or form. But getting into Amaros, which we've talked a lot about Amaros on the channel this year, and that's just plain old Campari. The first time I had Campari, it has a very strong bitterness, and it's sort of one of those things that it can sometimes be a bit of an acquired taste. But I think once you get there, it's a very good mixer. Again, the Boulevardier, I think was probably my favorite cocktail that I made on the show this year, or up there anyway. I just like that sort of combination of sweet bourbon and bitter Campari, and then your sweet vermouth as well. It just mixes really well together. It's a great cocktail, and I drink plenty of those, maybe more than I should. So Campari has been great. It sort of got introduced to it this year. I mean, I had it a couple of times previously, but this is the year where I kind of really got into it quite a bit. The next was another one that we tried new this year, and that's St. Elizabeth Allspice Dram. It's very, very thick, kind of sweet, although not particularly sweet, baking spice liqueur, and it tastes very fall and wintry. It tastes like something you would want to have by a fire. I wouldn't probably recommend sipping, well, really either one of these by themselves, but they're a really, really good addition to any cocktail. This one especially, a good addition to any like wintry cocktail, you know, mix it with some bourbon or something like that. And again, we've had a few cocktails on the show with this. Finally, the other one I sort of discovered, we haven't done it on the show, but I think we probably will get into it, and that's Pessoa. It is a passion fruit liqueur from France. Yeah. Passion fruit is just a really great flavor, especially for tiki cocktails. I don't see it being used a ton, and I kind of think that's a shame. And it doesn't even take very much. On the back, they list Pessoa Sangria, Pessoa Madras, and Pessoa Fresh. I haven't made those. The cocktail that this really pops for me is just to make a passion fruit daiquiri. I mean, you just make your standard daiquiri, which we haven't done on the channel yet, but we definitely will at some point in the near future, because I think daiquiri is one of the most important cocktails out there. And you basically just make a daiquiri, and you toss in anywhere between half an ounce to an ounce of your Pessoa, depending on your flavor. The one thing with Pessoa is it is going to take over a little bit. All of these kind of will, to a certain degree, if you're not careful. They can take over the cocktail. Pessoa, though, I think it's just a great addition to most tiki cocktails, especially your more simple tiki cocktails. So Pessoa is one that I've definitely grown to like quite a lot this year, and it will definitely make an appearance on the channel next year at some point. In the next category is one of my favorites, and it's rum, because I love rum. This is one I found. I think I bought my first bottle last year, but I sort of got into it this year. This bottle is still sealed up because I drank the other one, and it is El Dorado Master Blenders 27. This is 2017 edition, which is funny. I hadn't seen it anywhere until very late last year, and then sort of got into it more this year. It's a Guyanan rum, and rum from Guyana has a very specific flavor profile. Their fermentation is made in these things called dunder pits. It's kind of a unique way of making rum. The distillery down there is one of the oldest distilleries. It might be the oldest distillery continuously operated in the Americas. It's just got a really, really great pedigree, and this rum is great. It's a very deep, very oaky flavor. It's not over sweetened, which El Dorado sometimes has this tendency to do on some of their older rums. If you have their 15 or their 21 year, and I think that hurts the rums. It gives that kind of sugary, thick sort of aftertaste. This doesn't have that. I'm sure there could still be sugar added to it. I'm not sure there isn't, but it does. I don't taste it as much, and I thought it was just really probably the best rum I had this year. So if you can find it, that's a really great one to pick up. So before we get to my number one recommendation, what I kind of thought was, I'm a bourbon guy, so my number one recommendation is going to be bourbon, and I think it's probably pound for pound the best. One of the best bourbons I had, and definitely the best new bourbon I've had. We have to talk about one other thing that's going to be our dishonorable mention. Now, I love Heaven Hill Distillery. I think they make great products, which is why I was very excited when Elijah Craig announced they were going to do a rye. It was released, I think it was released last year, but its release was very strange, and there were some areas where it's very plentiful. But everywhere I went, I could never seem to find it. I finally got a couple of bottles this year, and I have to say I was very, very disappointed in it. It tasted very immature for a rum, or for a rye. A couple of years ago, Old Forester released a rye that was really fantastic, and this would sort of be a direct competitor to that, and just didn't come through. It tasted very immature. It tasted kind of acetatey. I definitely wouldn't call it a sipping rye. I mean, I think you could probably mix that and be okay. But given, the Elijah Craig pedigree, you'd sort of expect a little better out of them. So it was definitely disappointing. Hopefully they maybe come out with a barrel proof rye that does a little bit better, but we'll see. But yeah, unfortunately Elijah Craig this year has got to be my dishonorable mention. In the final category, I'm a big bourbon guy, so of course my number one recommendation is going to be a bourbon. I think this is probably pound for pound the best bourbon, the best new bourbon. And I don't know, this might have come out the previous year, liquor release schedules are always kind of interesting because things don't always get released in every market at the same time. It can kind of, you know, be very difficult to figure out when something is released. I first had it this year, early this year. It was released here in my state, and that is Maker's 46 cask strength. I've always liked the Maker's 46. The regular Maker's cask strength I've not been as big of a fan of, but the Maker's 46 I have. And the bottles that I've gotten have been just fantastic. It's priced, I think, around $60, $50 or $60, which I think in that price point, there's very little that's gonna give it a run for its money. I think some of those Knob Creek picks might get close. However, those aren't definitely not new to me. I've been having Knob Creek picks for many years. And this was really good. It's just very, very full flavor, full-bodied whiskey. It's a wheat whiskey, so it does have that sweetness to it, but it's also not like cloyingly sweet or anything like that. Some wheat whiskeys also have a tendency to lack flavor because wheat brings sweetness, but it doesn't bring as much flavor as rye does. So sometimes I think wheat whiskeys are kind of having a harder time keeping up in the flavor department with rye whiskeys, and this one very definitely does, especially given the price point, given that it's available in a lot of markets now, so it's not as hard to find as it was when it first came out. So yeah, if you're looking for a new bourbon to give to somebody that maybe hasn't tried this one yet, it isn't up on the new things coming out, I would definitely recommend Maker's 46 cask strength. Maybe one that doesn't wobble quite as much as that. But that being said, it's been a great year. I want to thank everybody for watching the channel. It's been great hearing from people. I want to thank you for watching, for liking, subscribing, sharing, doing all the things that the YouTube algorithm demands that we do. I want to wish everybody a very, very happy new year, and let's hope 2022 gets a little better. So, happy New Year's.